Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Michael Levan, and in this video what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to set up the Flux controller for your GitOps environment. Now, first things first, you're going to have to specify some Git credentials. So if you run these two commands, if you're on Linux or if you're on Mac, for example, any bash style environment, you can set environment variables just like this. So the first environment variable is going to be a GitHub token. Now this can be like a personal access token, for example, that you can generate via GitHub, and then your GitHub username. Now do keep in mind I am using GitHub for this, but any Git-based source control will work just fine. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run the pre-check, and what this is going to do is it's pretty much just going to have Flux look at my current Kubernetes cluster, see if it's all good. It's going to let me know, yep, all the prerequisites passed, we're good to go. Next, we're going to have to set up the connection between Flux and GitHub. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to create a new repository, which we're going to take a look at in a sec. And it's going to put our clusters inside of this path. We're just going to be calling our cluster minikube because that's what I'm currently running on. But of course, you could, specify any cluster name that you'd like here. And you also want to specify a namespace. So I'm going to put all of my Flux components into a namespace called Flux name. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this, and I'll go ahead and I'll run that. And as you can see, we're connecting to GitHub. This could take a few minutes, totally depends on internet connection and all of that good stuff. All right, and as we can see, everything was deployed successfully. All components are healthy. What I want to do here is I just want to head over to GitHub really quick. And as you can see, I'm in my GitHub. I'm just going to refresh my repos. And as you can see, we have this new repo called Fleet GitOps. And if I click on that, as you can see, we have our cluster here. And then we have some components. So if we click on this go2tk, we can see that this is creating the namespace, the CRD, all of that stuff for Flux to actually run. So it's creating all of the Flux operator components. Next, if we click on the sync, we can see here that this has created a synchronization process that's going to have an interval of 1 minute. And it also created this customize configuration here. And if we go back, we can take a look at that. And Flux is currently using customize for all of its configurations. Now, one thing that I do want to point out here about Flux is that natively, like whatever Kubernetes apps that you want to deploy to your Kubernetes cluster, again, natively Flux works best with customize or Helm charts. You can point to individual Kubernetes manifests, but it does definitely feel like duct tape. So I don't even really showcase it, to be honest. I either typically use customize or Helm charts. But if you want to point to individual Kubernetes manifests, Argo CD does that, just fine. So if you want to use Argo CD for that specific purpose, you absolutely can. So let's head over back to VS Code. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear my screen here. And what we're going to have to do at this point is all of the commands moving forward. So like to add the resource, for example, to deploy the application, we're going to have to do it from the repo that we just created. And the reason why is because that's where our GitOps cluster configuration exists. So let me go back to GitHub here really quick. I'm going to go to this repo. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click the clone button. And then in this directory, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to paste this in. All right. Next, I'm going to cd into Fleet GitOps. And now at this point, we can start running our commands. And if I just do an ls here and I cd in, we can see that, here's our cluster that we just configured in this step right here for the Bootstrap process. All right. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the source. Now, what the source means is Flux wants to look at a specific repository where your code exists. That way the code can be deployed. So it's really like your source of truth almost. So what I'm doing here is I'm pointing it to this URL. You can go here to take a look at this. This is just some code that I have for some of my Pearson and O'Reilly courses. I'm specifying the main branch. I'm saying that I want to check in every 30 seconds. Again, I'm specifying the Flux name namespace because that's where our Flux components are configured. And then it's going to output this YAML here, which we'll take a look at in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run this. All right. And then if I open this up here, where is this? Let me just find this really quick. All right, right here. If we go ahead and we open up this YAML, we can see that this is an actual resource from the Flux CRD, and we can see the kind or the resource that we're utilizing is the Git repository, and it's just pointing to our URL here, specifying our interval and our branch, including our namespace. Right. So we're going to have to push this code up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add it. And when I say push the code up, oops, sorry about that. And when I say push the code up, I mean that actual YAML that we just took a look at, the Git repository resource. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push that up. All right. Now we can actually go ahead and we can deploy the app. So what this is going to do is I'm going to specify, okay, I want my app to go to the default namespace. The source is going to be what we just created right here. So that Flux source. I'm going to specify the path. So I'm going to show you this in just a second, but this is a path where the customized configuration exists. I'm going to set up prune to true. Again, I'm going to specify my Flux name namespace. I'm going to do the interval for every 5 minutes. And then we have our customized configuration here. Now, before we deploy this, let me just go ahead and show you the customized configuration. Right now, notice here how I have a default directory on admin turn DevOps / Pearson courses for customize. So that's where this comes into play here. This is just looking at the directory inside of this source, which is what I just showed in GitHub. Right. So now let's go ahead and let's run this, and then we'll take a look at the YAML and see what it's doing. All right, let's take a look at this. It is using the Flux CRD here, and it's using the customization resource from Flux. And what it's doing is it's setting up our interval, ensuring that our namespace is correct. Again, this namespace is where our Flux components are configured, and then specifying the path to where our customized configuration code is, along with the source reference right here. So again, let's go ahead and push our code up. All right. And now what we can do is we can use the Flux get customizations command. And what this is going to do is it's going to show us all of the customized configurations running. All right. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually open up another terminal while this is running. We'll go ahead and we'll run kubectl get deployments. Now I don't think this is going to be deployed just yet. Nope. So we're going to have to go ahead and we're going to have to wait a few minutes for this to be fully configured and deployed. All right, let's go ahead and try to run that again. And as we can see, our Nginx deployment is officially deployed via our Flux controller. And that's how you can get started using Flux in your GitOps environment right now. Thanks so much for watching.